Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Belgian Football Podcast. My name's Scott Coyne. I'll be your host for this week's episode. And joining me, much like last week, ready to dive into all the latest transfer incomings and outgoings in Belgium, is our very own Joris. Good evening to you, Joris. How are you?
Good evening, Scott. Survived the infamous storm blizzard in Germany the last 2 years, which actually was not that much, to be honest. So that was much ado about nothing, but definitely survived. And well, now the snow seems to have actually almost everywhere evaporated already. So that's how quick it goes. It started yesterday, and now we're here. And that's the weather from Hamburg.
Well, I might as well give you the weather from Scotland, where I am as well. We had a couple of days where we had to batten down the hatches a little bit. It was very, very windy and very wet and pretty wild. And in the part of Scotland where I am, down in the central belt, we were lucky because we just had wind and rain. And I say lucky because the Highlands and the Western Isles and the rest of Scotland had between 9 and 19 inches of snow, depending on where they were. So, we probably got off lightly. So yeah, it's been a bit wild here, but it's settled down somewhat now. Unlike the transfer market, which is starting to pick up a little bit of pace. We were talking last time we were together over some of the incomings and outgoings, and what we're going to do in this week's episode is just kind of update all of that, really, because there's been some interesting business done, I think, over the past week, Joris, both incomings and outgoings. We also had the Belgian Golden Boot this week as well, so we're going to touch on that because I think there's some questions around that I think a lot of people might want us to address. One of the glittering dates on the Belgian footballing calendar. We've also got as well, it may still be the winter break, but some clubs are back in action already. We've also got the Belgian Cup Quarter Finals this week. We had 2 games last night, which we will talk about. There's a game ongoing right now as of recording. We have a game tomorrow evening, and we've also got European action coming up very, very quickly next week as well. So it's all coming at us thick and fast. So let's start with the big news, probably the big news of the week, Joris, I would imagine. A transfer that kind of came out of nowhere that nobody really expected on this scale. Club Brugge's 18-year-old striker, or Club Next's, actually, to be more accurate, really, because he was part of the academy setup, although he did have some involvement with the senior side. 18-year-old striker, Kay Furo, has now left Belgium. Out of nowhere, Brentford decided to go, we'll give you 10 million plus add-ons, plus a very, very healthy sell-on percentage, which we don't know what it is, but it is reportedly the biggest sell-on percentage that Club Brugge have managed to negotiate on any deal. So by any accounts, this is a massive bit of business for them, and a really interesting one. I've always been a fan of his. I've always liked what I've seen. There's always been that caveat that most of his performances obviously have come with Club Next in the Challenger Pro League. And he hasn't managed to make a serious breakthrough with the senior side, but the talent has been clear to see, I think, and I always felt that he had the potential to make a move as big as this at some point, but it's really kind of come out of the blue. And I've got to say, I admire Brentford, Joris, for kind of identifying this early and going, do you know what, we're going to go for this. Obviously, an entirely data-driven club, Brentford, famously so. And the data's obviously given them lots to see and like, and I can understand why. I suppose the concern is it coming too soon for him? And is he going to play regularly? Is his own development going to be halted? But yeah, massive, massive deal, this one.
Yeah, a few things to mention there, of course. I do think this, I have to admit, that sell-on clause and these bonus percentages, like I also saw somewhere much more than the usual 10%, which then Nico is like, okay, 11%, 12.5%, 15%. It's not massive, but okay, maybe we don't know the details on that. That's the main thing. Like, it would the extent. I'm assuming it's more in the direction of 50% or something like that. That I think is, I believe, the maximum that you can have. I'm actually not sure if there is a maximum, but I do believe that it would be that. But actually, there's not much that can be said about that, and also these are uncertainties anyway, of course. So I do think that was more of a PR, element from club on that. But yeah, well, Fuo indeed didn't want to extend his contract. So yeah, big talent, hasn't shown that much yet at senior level, at least. Did get a nice goal against Sint-Truiden. Um, and yeah, a huge potential for sure. But yeah, if he doesn't want to extend his contract, okay, there was still it's still a reasonably high sum anyway, because it's not this summer that his contract would have ended, but in 1.5 seasons. So it's very proactive from everyone, I guess, that they went for this deal. But he must have pushed for that as well. And with Brentford, yeah, but I don't believe he will feature there immediately. He will be more of a, well, like at Club Brugge, more of an academy or like an under 23s pickup for now. Of course, with the ID to that changes soon, because they're not going to pay, even if for Premier League clubs this is not a big sum anymore, of course, but they still won't pay that just for an academy player. So they should have some trust in him. They've of course seen Igor Thiago now as well as a big example, from coming from the same club, and now the most scoring Brazilian in the Premier League of all time. Okay, with also there the small caveat, Diego Costa is not mentioned there because he features. He played for Spain, of course, but he most likely will catch him as well. I believe that's around 20. But okay, that's a tangent. But nonetheless, yeah, that's definitely something they are anticipating, that he might leave. Who knows? There's already rumors around him leaving this window, even with big clubs. But I'm don't really know if that's going to happen, of course. But if that were to happen, then of course Fuo is already moving up the ladder a little bit. But I do think he has a few steps to go there. Whether in the end it's going to be a smart choice, we will have to see. For us, it's of course a shame to lose a young talent really, really early, as well. That we don't get to watch him more often in the league, and in European football in general as well, playing European football. But yeah, we will have to see. But we've seen many players leave at young age from Belgium to bigger competitions. Not all of them have been successful. Obviously, there's always the element of yeah, the budget that's higher, so the salary is also higher, the wages that are higher, that's the paycheck, cashing in that quite early. That also plays a big role. It's for some it has been a success story, for some it hasn't. But at least he will have the money for for a while, and hopefully for him it can also develop there. In Brentford, in its own, of course, as you mentioned, their scouting is generally really well organized, and they rarely miss transfers as well. So they might have taken, maybe it's a bit of a gamble to do it this early, but they definitely will have done that with their knowledge behind them, and with a reasonable chance of success for him. So yeah, in that sense, that the club in the end he goes to might be the right one, and of course it's up to him now as well, of course, to earn his spot there.
Yeah, I think it's a case of big risk, big rewards. With a deal like this, I've seen a lot of people this week feeling that it's probably come too early, but you just never know. And a lot of Club Brugge fans really feeling quite warm towards Brentford, because that means now they've received into their bank the best part of 50 million from Brentford, which of course, as you were saying, 10 million to a Premier League club is not really a big deal, but neither's particularly 50 million across two players, actually. But from a Belgian perspective, two huge deals, and it's going to be really interesting to see how he does there, because I had him marked down for big things, not necessarily quite this early. So I was as surprised as anybody. I was a little bit surprised that some of the top clubs in Belgium didn't show more interest in him. But I think the reality is, for the sort of fee I think that club were probably going to ask for him, that probably took him out of the league of, financially speaking, for a lot of the other sides in Belgium as well, which is just kind of unfortunate, because I think he probably would have benefited from playing regularly at the top level with another senior side. But he's made the jump earlier, and he's not the first to do that. So we wish him well, and it's definitely one that we will keep an eye on. Plenty of other business going on this week as well, Joris. Where will we go next? Yeah, so couple of outgoings at Antwerp, interesting ones. Rosen Bozanov has left the Bossel. He's going to Italy. He's going to Pisa in a reasonably lucrative deal for Antwerp, a deal around 6 million. And another player, a really exciting young prospect who, no surprise he's leaving, really. It was always going to be a matter of when rather than if. Zeno van den Bosch, who's been a regular for what feels like ages actually now, which is obviously good for his development, but that's not really the case because he's still only 22. He's now signed with Union Berlin. He will see the season out in Belgium, obviously, end his contract, technically leaving a free, and join the Bundesliga side in the summer. He gets his move. A couple of interesting ones there, I suppose. The Bozanov deal will obviously, for a club that are not looking to spend too much money at the moment for reasons that are well known, will certainly be looking to use some of that fee probably to bring in one or two, I would imagine.
Yeah, definitely a good sum as well for 5 million for Bozanov, who, to be honest, has not been showing that much with them. Of course, he features more this season after the retirement of Alderweireld, and well, as we know, they have some issues there indeed. So they moved him up, and they make a good profit out of him after only 1.5 seasons. Of course, Van den Bos is a bit more sour. Losing both of them in winter would have been even worse because, despite what I say about Blazhinov, of course, he is part of that, a part of that core squad and featuring a lot this season. So they will have to replace him as they're not so thick. Their squad is not that thick as well. So they losing both of them would have been even more disastrous. Maybe that's too much of a strong of a word, but worse for them. And a bigger challenge with the limited means they would get. Of course, the downside of that is that they will lose Van den Bos indeed on a free, so there's no profit at all there. Yeah, but yeah, I do feel like they need to get some incomings done there as well, because, well, who's there left there? Kouyaté, who's, well, been shaky, put it that way, maybe, and then definitely is also prone to get a suspension here or there sooner or later as well. So that he might not be available the whole time either. And yeah, that they really need some more people to get to stuff that back a bit. In quantity, also, of course, ideally also in quality. Van den Bos as well. Like, he's sadly stagnated a bit in his growth path, I think. So maybe it's a good thing that he goes forever out of his comfort zone for from next season on as well. Maybe that is exactly what he needs on a personal level. But of course, same with him. He is a big feature in their defense this season. Of course, hasn't shown it all the time, but he's part of that squad that has really had a really good December after the changing management. So definitely is crawling back up as well. So it's good that they can keep him for this half of the season at least still. But regardless, I do think that they need at least a replacement for Bozhinov, to bring one in and secure the back a bit more.
Yeah, there's a lot going on at Antwerp at the moment in terms of the choices I think that they have to make, because they're trying really hard to hold on to Vincent Janssen and Jarano Kerk as well. It's all very much up in the air as to whether they're going to be able to do that, because the likelihood is if that happens, both are going to have to accept reduced terms. So you wouldn't imagine that even though this reasonably big fee has come in for Bosnov, that they'll have much wiggle room, even with that fee, in terms of being able to kind of negotiate those deals. So it'll be really interesting to see what happens there as well with those two players who are obviously still there at the moment. It's curious because obviously Oostings has started really well there. He's had a really strong start, and I think he'll be looking at this at the moment and just hoping that losing Van den Bosch, albeit at the end of the season, and Bosnov just now, and obviously the situation with Janssen and Kirk being up in there, that those things don't destabilise what has been a good start for him there, I think. I find that really, really interesting that despite, there being a lot of uncertainty around a lot of things there, that, he's had a positive start. So players are definitely responding to him. So we'll see what happens with that. A club that's been quite busy in terms of their incomings this week, the champions, Union Saint-Gilloise, they've brought in two just over the last 24 hours. 21-year-old centre-back Masir Silla is coming in from Lynn 1896. And 23-year-old central midfielder Besfort Zanelli is coming in from Elfsborg. And they are, kind of beefing up the squad somewhat, because I think there's a feeling, obviously, with certainly coming into this winter break window, they dropped a few points and things have been getting pretty tight at the top, as we know. They're about as tight as they get now. So I think they're aware that, they need... Yeah, they need some fresh blood in there, I think, just to kind of refocus everybody going into a big push in the second half of the season.
Yep. Again, like you mentioned, probably good that they stuff the squads a bit more. Maybe with that, in regards with that drop off in form as well. But yeah, big gambles again, I guess, because the defender, of course, he comes out of the second division in Norway. Of course, he was there the young talent of the year or something in that genre of awards. So of course he was one of the better players there, but still it is a big step up. So I also feel like this might be one that's also more eyeing next season already as well, and give him some time to get into the squad, especially with in the Scandinavian leagues, both of the leagues there. They took those players from actually, also Zanelli, who might feature a bit more in the second half of the season, but of course with them being summer leagues, so otherwise these players would not have played anything for a reasonable for the next 2 months, I guess, more or less still. So it's good to get them in early, and then at least let them train on this level. And I do believe they will feature as well, of course, but it's nearly a bit more, maybe, as Rasmussen is then rumored to be on the way out, maybe as well, so that would just be a direct replacement, and Rasmussen has featured a bit more this season as well, so than in the previous seasons. So yeah, that's he could also take his place. But yeah, interesting ones. It's always difficult. We trust them in their scouting, and for sure, as we've touched on almost every week, I guess, still again. Let's see if they are bringing the direct impact that is, to a certain extent, also needed, and can up their level again, maybe, as not only the points were dropped towards the end of this of December, November, December, but also the level of play the standard of play has been a bit lower than the last few seasons, which is, of course, nothing dramatic, because obviously they're still the league leaders, as you may started your segment on this one with as well. But it is visible, and it caught up with them a little bit. Maybe they can help turn that around. They're definitely still in a good place to get that started.
Yeah, well, we're just talking there about two players that have come in from Scandinavian clubs, and Scandinavian clubs are a bit of a theme over the past week in Belgian football because another couple of players at other clubs have come in from Scandinavia. 17-year-old Danish defender Tristan Panduro has joined Zulte Waregem from Copenhagen's academy. One of the really hot prospects they had there. They had him earmarked for kind of great things. I suspect that's probably one more for next season. Really, give him a few months to bed in a new culture and a new league. You would imagine. Be interesting to see how much game time he gets, but that's potentially an exciting one. I think.
Very important as well. You mentioned 70-year-old. That's clearly not true because he signed a contract on the 18th birthday. A very important element, both for the birthday, but also he can give longer contracts that way. So
that's true. That's very true. Yeah.
That definitely is no coincidence that was on his 18th birthday. So belated happy birthday to him as well. That's been was on the 10th of January, and hopefully for him it's not the last time we mention him, or not like not one of those that we will have to mention in a few seasons. Like, do you remember that sign? No, doesn't ring a bell. So, but yeah, supposedly quite a big talent. So let's see what he can bring from next season on, most likely, indeed.
That's what it looks likely to be, kind of the case, and they've indicated that kind of quite clearly. I think that they're going to give him time to develop, which code for this is one for maybe the start of next season. But I'm sure he'll get a little bit of game time, I think, which will also be good for helping him kind of bed in at Zulte.
I also love his second, his middle name as well. Altcroft. Yeah, nice. So yeah, he's Danish English actually, even so, in citizenship. So, but it's this Altcroft. Well, still that's the English influence, but it's not a generic name either. There, I presume.
Yeah, I love little bits of trivia like that. Speaking of things like that, I did notice something that Union Saint-Gilloise have started to do on their website. Actually, is along with the signing announcements, they've got a little bit of trivia about each player, where they give you some kind of background facts and information on the players that people probably don't know. Because as everyone will know, Union Saint-Gilloise are very well known for the extent to which they do their due diligence and their research. So there's these lovely little nuggets that obviously come out of these very thick folders that the team compile there that I thought was kind of quite nice. So go and check that out on their website, and long may that continues a regular feature, because I'm into that. And Joris has just added our own equivalent of that for Tristan Panduro there. I didn't know that, by the way, so thanks for bringing that, Joris. That's, you've already earned this week's fee on that fact-finding mission alone. The other Scandinavian incoming, and I say incoming because this isn't quite complete yet, but it should probably be complete tomorrow. 21-year-old Danish left back Gustav Mortensen is coming to Standard. He's due to have his medical tomorrow, so providing he passes that and signs his contract tomorrow, he will be this time tomorrow a Standard player, somebody who was of great interest to Westerlo, particularly in light of the fact that they've lost probably their star defender this week, although they feel a little bit less bad about that, receiving a decent fee. Tor Romans is coming to my neck of the woods in Scotland. Actually, he's joining Rangers in what is a good deal, I think, for his development. And of course, he's leaving a manager in Isami Shirai at Westerlo who knows about life at Rangers, doesn't he, Joris? Because he was part of Philippe Clement's staff for a short period of time. So I'm sure he's had a good chat about the demands and expectations and what it is that he's going into there. That's an interesting one too. Yeah, so big Scandinavian theme really this week, kind of all round in lots of ways. Couple of other deals probably worth touching on. Griffin Yao, who looked like for a while he might be going to join one of his former T1s, Rick DeMille at Ghent, has opted to go back to the MLS. He's joined New England Revolution. I think this was a deal that's probably more motivated by the desire to ensure that he's playing regular football, obviously with the World Cup coming up. Perhaps Ghent not willing to pay the wages that perhaps New England Revolution are willing to offer as well. But yep, he's heading back to the States. And another one, which is to some extent slipped under the radar, and this is why I'm bringing it up, because potentially there's a huge fee involved in this one as well, which hasn't been confirmed either way, but some sources are reporting big money here. Alan Minda has, as of today, officially left Cercle. We knew he was going to leave Cercle Bruges. Some sources quoting a fee in the region of 9 million. Cercle not confirming that for reasons that I can kind of understand regardless. He's going to Atlético Mineiro in Brazil, a player who probably on a good day was just electric, but there weren't nearly enough of them really, were there?
Yeah, indeed. Just not enough of them, but not making them a good fee, of course, still. So that's probably a win-win in the end. Although, of course, Cercle Brugge, we have to see. Maybe they would have needed them by the end of the season. We might come back to that. Maybe they would have needed him and did not have to sell him yet. But yeah, it's a decent fee, regardless of how high it in the end is. I believe it's at least rumored to be 7.5 million, and then bonuses leading up to the even higher sum you already mentioned, maybe, but of course these are just guesses so far. It just didn't clock to 100 games, so 99 games for Cercle. That's a bit of a shame that it's just that one little game too little, or like this 1 minute sub performance too little for that. But yeah, they also they do mention it even on the website as well, like in the message, like the solo goal against Club Brugge, of course, is one of those glimpses, and that's probably the moment we all will remember most of him. He had a few more good moments as well, and great goals as well, but in the end, maybe it's just a little bit too little output, indeed. Despite the flashes he has really shown, and then we will have to see how that goes with Cercle Brugge as well. Of course, maybe the last week we were talking about the incomings at Cercle Brugge, or one of them at least, Van Zijl mainly, might have a double function as well then, because I guess he could play a bit more in that role as well, even though it's not completely his natural position maybe, but he will end up there. But of course, they now have a bit of money to spend again as well, I guess, on probably some of the replacement for Minda as well. To come back on a few of the others you mentioned, Romans, indeed, it's interesting. Westerlo have been busy actually both in and outgoing. I think ingoing we might talk about a bit later, or maybe we already did last week. I actually forgot a little bit here if we already touched on it. Maybe it was still a rumor then, and now it's official. With the 18-year-old Japanese player coming in, I do think we talked about it last week already, but But Roman's going out, of course. I've seen one of his last games, then his last home game, I guess, even then for Westerlo. Making a big move to your neck of the woods. Of course, you will talk about that a bit more in other podcasts as well, as you have not mentioned yet for reasons unknown.
Joris is dropping lots of hints, so I might as well spill the beans now. Yeah, as will surprise absolutely nobody. You might be able to hear my dulcet tones on some Rangers podcasts in the coming week. I will be joining some of them to talk in a little bit more detail about Tor Romans going to Ibrox, and another player who is even more high profile, who obviously has a huge Belgian connection as well. Obviously, he's been playing his recent football in Wolfsburg in Germany. Not as often as he would like, because things haven't really worked out for him there. But Club Brugge fans will, of course, remember Andreas Skov Olsen, Danish international, who was really wonderful during his time at Club Brugge, actually, getting his big move to the Bundesliga, which hasn't quite worked out for him. He is going to Rangers. On loan. They have an option to buy him as well. So, yeah, I'll be appearing on some Rangers podcasts to talk more about both those players and their Belgian connections, and what Rangers fans can expect from these two players. So that's the cat out of the bag on that one. Yeah, we kind of touched on Westerlo there briefly. Obviously, Griffin Yao leaving, his departure has been softened slightly today with the confirmation that Shunsuke Saito has come in, attacking midfielder and winger. I think he's 20, I think. So they're working diligently away in the background. I know Isami Shirai was keen to get a couple in after losing Roman, somebody he was really quite desperate not to lose. But I think the timing was probably right, and the money was good again. And I think Romans felt that the challenge in that move was an understandable one that he would want to make. Yeah, lots of interesting incomings and outgoings this week, definitely. We should touch on the Golden Boot this week as well, Joris, because it is one of the big dates in the Belgian football calendar. Everyone was sitting there around their tables, having a nice meal in their glad rags. The envelope came out, and absolutely everybody in the room, including all of the journalists gathered on the evening, were expecting the name Christos Solis to be announced. That wasn't what happened. One of his former teammates came out, and I'm not talking about Hans Van Aken, who a lot of people thought deserved the award, which would have been his fourth Golden Boot. He didn't win either. It was, much to everybody's surprise, it was Ardan Yashari, who of course is now at Milan. Left club not too long ago, had to force through his move after a brilliant season last year. I was lucky enough to see him in person, and watch him off the ball a bit, and discover that he was every bit as good as everyone said he was. Arden Yashari wins the Golden Boot, which of course is awarded, for those of you who don't know or need a reminder, to the best player in Belgium for the previous 12 months. It's probably worth reminding people, Joris, how the voting works for this as well, because it isn't a simple one vote system. There's various rounds of voting that influence this as well. But yeah, the thing I liked about this, if there's something to like, Joris, was, of course, and this made the press, the Club Brugge table got up to applaud despite their surprise. And the one individual who didn't get up, partly because he was shocked, but partly because he realised this was going to have a negative impact potentially on selling Christos Solis at the end of the season for a huge fee, hopefully, was Bart Verheiga, who kind of sat there slightly dumbfounded, I think, realising that this was going to have probably, as I was saying, a negative impact on potentially a huge deal for Solis, who has been really good and probably did deserve the award. What were your thoughts on all of that?
Yeah, it's always funny. Also, it's also it's also worth mentioning, of course, that Solis effectively only was third, and Van Aken even indeed trumped him as well. So that would also be a surprise, but one that the Club Brugge the squad and fans would have understood a bit better. But it's also funny how Club Brugge got the whole podium and still everyone at Club Brugge is outraged. So that's how that's the level of spoiledness that I hope to maybe reach in my football life. But maybe on the other hand, I'm happy that that's probably not going to happen either. But so yeah, it's funny how that goes with. But yeah, I agree in the end, though, of course, that Solis would have deserved him a bit more, or Van Aken as well, maybe. But I feel like he is a bit less impactful lately. Yashari, of course, was a bigger talent, maybe, and might have. We'll have to see. He really was really good last season, but they didn't win anything. So it's in a season where Club Brugge didn't win, a year where Club Brugge didn't win the league, and also are not on top of the league currently in December, because often it's a bit skewed in that second part as well. And they're trumped in both competitions as well by Union. That is a bit weird that they at least get all three of them. I don't. It's of course a fact. Is a bit more of a collective experience as well. I do feel like Promise Davis probably deserved to end up a bit higher than he eventually did. Whether he deserved to win it, I mean, I'll still leave that open for debate. But like he could have been among those or closer to those, of course. Those three of Club Brugge as well, of course. But yeah. But also in the end, it's just an award that's. I mean, it's not that important. Like, to be honest, like I still feel like that, and also it's. Yeah, I mean, effectively, it is important because, like you mentioned, it can affect the transfer value a little bit, or it's more like a bargaining chip for Club Brugge than, of course, for interested clubs. And with Yashari already being sold, that is, not going to change anything on that end anymore, except if there's any kind of bonus clause. But by the reactions, I don't expect that will have been the case for winning that shoe or boot. But yeah, that's it's just it's all a bit funny how everything panned out as well. And then in Verhagen, he's a very toxic manager, is at least the experience we are all getting both there, but also, well, now yesterday in their cup game, of course. Again, like he just made the manager change. It's the third game, I think, or fourth game. Leko is in charge. I think that might be an European game as well, so maybe even fifth. But he's still very early on, and already he's been in the dressing room again at halftime. I can't really handle people like that well, I have to admit. So I'm glad I don't really have to work with him. And yeah, it's unfortunate that we are obviously we're not nearly in the spheres that we will have a conversation with him, although we may be able to get there at some point. But that because I think he's an interesting man for sure. But I would not like him because there was that in the dressing room. But then after Charleroi, so yeah, spoiler alert for those who haven't checked the cup results yet. Don't listen to the next segment as well. But Charleroi have beaten them 2-0, and after club seemed to have pulled one back to one that was eventually disallowed by VAR. Vraag also just left the stands and ran away furiously from the stands. The both cams were a bit overreacting there maybe as well, but from the winning side, or like the decision, the side the decision went to, that is more understandable maybe than the losing side. Quite a dramatic evening as well. It all culminated a bit, and it adds a bit of everything on that golden boot losing. It's still one of their players, but okay, Sol is not getting that one. He arguably should have gotten a red card as well by the end of the game. They're really at the end of the game, where Campbell already went berserk for not really big reason, and did get his red card. But Solis didn't do terrible things maybe, but he did do what is like always given a red card, and often a lot of games of extra punishment as well, with trying to stop the ref from then taking the card from the ref, touching the ref like that as well. We've seen many incidents, even with the same referee, over the past 2 seasons, where in similar situations, even where that has happened, and he's always reacted differently. So sometimes he gave a red card, and it was, and sometimes he let it slide as well. So like the whole consistency thing plays a role there as well. In the refereeing, but in general, that is just a textbook red card anyway. Regardless of it on itself not seeming, it's harmless, but it's just one of those things.
Yeah, it's been a pretty wild and dramatic 2 or 3 days for club, actually. You know, the events of the Golden Boot evening, and then, you know, that surprise result last night, as Joris was saying, in the quarterfinals of the Belgian Cup, club going to Stade de Pays in Charleroi and losing 2-0 in the night. much to everybody's surprise, including Bart's. It's not the first or the last time, as Joris was saying, Bart has been in the dressing room to make his points. Always controversial. That not many people are going to be down with that behaviour at all. It's more often the case, harmful rather than helpful in any way, and tends to undermine other staff as well. I did see some wild conspiracy theories flying around as well over the last 24 hours or so, Joris. I don't know if you saw them, where some people were suggesting that, club have some master plan to deliberately go out of the cup so that they can concentrate on the league, but I don't really buy into these things at all. And a club like Club Brugge, you wouldn't be allowed to even think that, in any way. And when you consider the fact that they're now breathing down Union's neck, regardless, there's no reason for them to feel good about having one less kind of tournament to worry about. In fact, quite the opposite's true, which probably explains Bar's visit to the dressing room. Potentially there was a double on the cards. It's now been as well, fact fans, you'll like this, Joris, you might know this, but it's now been, I think, 30 years since the Belgian Cup was last won back-to-back by any side, and that was Club. In the mid-90s as well. So it just shows you how difficult it is to do that, even in Belgium, to achieve something like that. And I think many people thought that Club had a chance to do that this year, obviously fighting on those two fronts still, but that's gone now. And Hans Cornelis's start at Charleroi has been very strong. Mary Byatt said he got the job on the basis of a positive start, and he's continued in that. And what a huge boost that'll be to everybody. There was one other game last night as well in the quarterfinals at the Bosphore. Antwerp managed to dispose of Raal 2-1 as well, so they've made it through to the semi-finals and will really fancy their chances of going all the way now, as well they might. Other fixtures this week, there's a game ongoing right now, as we were saying earlier. Dender are at home to Union Saint-Gilloise. The half-time whistle's just gone, and Union are 2-0 up. Big task in the second half for Dender if they're going to try and turn that around now. And then the big quarter-final tie is on Thursday evening. So depending on when you listen to this, we may already know the result. That's Anderlecht at home to Ghent. And that'll be one well worth watching, I think. And of course, the Pro League itself is back on Friday evening. Not too long to wait, folks. Club Brugge are at home to Raal on Friday evening, and of course, the Challenger Pro League returns this weekend as well. We should touch on Europe as well before we wrap up this week, Joris, because some tasty and interesting ties coming at us thick and fast. We're talking a little bit about Clubs Week there. They've got a lot of travelling to do in the next few days. They've got an away tie against Kairat Almaty on Tuesday evening, of course, in the Champions League. Wednesday evening of next week, the Champions League sees Union face a massive task. They're in Munich to play Vincent Kompany's Bayern, and then on Thursday, your side, Joris, Genk are away to Utrecht. What's your feelings on Europe coming up this week?
Yeah, the Almaty tie will mainly be a lot of traveling indeed, and traveling to the cold. Although maybe with the recent weather, they might have had some taste of it by then. But yeah, I do feel Club Brugge should win that, but it's also really a must-win game for them in the Champions League if they want to have a chance to still proceed to the playoff round. They really need to win this one. Also one that was on paper everyone already put on in the beginning of the league phase. That would be one to win. With a lot of added pressure, of course, now with the Cup's exit on top as well. Leco not really being off to a great start, only because of that result, of course. That's coming quite recently quite early in his tenure. So there's a lot of added pressure there for sure. Then, Union, they are unfortunate, I do think, against one of the sides that are yeah, really, really dominant in Europe. We also seen against Club Brugge as well that they can punish you easily as well, and they will. So uh, don't really see any points there. I don't think anyone, if any result there would be a surprise. So maybe it would be a positive as well. Maybe to give it a positive spin. And Genk in Utrecht, yeah, it depends on the mindset. Maybe Genk is still not. One, this how they will they go into it as well after the league game that we'll talk on before that game anyway. Still, how will the confidence be? How will things have turned around or started turning around a little bit on the one hand, and on the other hand, Utrecht, who are all actually already out of the Europa League by this time. So, how will they approach this tie as well? And if so, how will they appear? Like they still have not won, of course, so that they will still want to win a game, I'm sure. A home time against Genk in the current position and in form that Genk currently is in. Also seems a winnable tie for them. Of course, a good one for the battle between Portugal to a lesser extent, but mainly Netherlands and Belgium for the next few seasons in Europe, the European spots. So a must-win game for Genk as well, in a sense. In that sense, hopefully if they want to get into the top 8, they better win the last 2 games, which are on paper winnable. But again, Genk's own form is not the reaching the sky at the moment. So a lot of that will depend on how everything will have turned by then, and how the players come out of the winter break.
Yeah, I'm kind of still smarting from the fact that we don't have a Belgian representative in the Conference League, because we know how important that could have been generally for the coefficient, and there's a strong probability that a Belgian side in there could very well have gone on a decent run. Because the rest of Europe this season has been a bit of a disappointment in comparison to kind of recent years. So hopefully we get some positive news to talk about next week. Certainly in clubs sense anyway, because by the time we convene for next week's update, we will know the outcome of that one at least. Interesting thing this week, actually, just get your thoughts on this before we wrap up this week, Joris. I noticed Nicky Hyan this week calling Caretsas the hottest prospect in terms, I think, of a potential transfer fee as well, of course, in Belgium at the moment. Would you agree with that?
He's among them, and also, yeah, it's a good thing we touched on that as well, because I'm very ashamed of the communication of my own club lately about anything. Like, because coming back to the Golden Boot award had is then like this. Where the Cats won the talent one before Caretsas, basically based on one season, half of the season where he had some really good games, but he also is one of the reasons we can actually maybe make the circle around. One of the reasons eventually that they did not reach the group stage, which is is of course forgotten by now as well. But I'd also feel like Caretsas probably deserved that award. But on the other hand, like, it's one of those awards. I personally don't really care about them, and they don't are not worth anything. But like, in reaction to that, Genk placed the day after, so that was Monday, I guess, or was it Tuesday? They placed some statistics on social media about Caretsas' net worth being the highest in all of all. With a specific line, more than even other players in the Belgian league, like Christos Solis. And I was like, why? I don't get the communication line on that. Like, they are so much putting the eggshells on their heads, and like, they keep themselves small. Like, I sometimes hate my own club in that sense. Like, but okay, that's not a direct reaction to what you're saying. But he's amongst them. Like, the aforementioned, the Cat definitely is also one that will. Is worth a lot already. He's even 1 year younger still, of course. There's some more young talents coming through at different clubs, but I mean, in where he is at the moment and with what age he is, I do feel like he definitely is. But a lot of this of the three, of course, is also part of how the team performs. And if they stay on the ninth position, yeah, then I don't think they might get to the highest prize. Unfortunately, or like an even higher price that than they could have gotten. Then that will be offered because he's such a talent that he will get big offers for sure. But hopefully, we don't need to think about that anyway. I'm not an accountant either, so I just hope he indeed can bring them to a better position in the night spot now, and also shine in Europe, of course. Yeah.
Yeah, I was interested to get your thoughts on that because it was certainly a comment that surprised nobody. But what was I thought the nice aspect of that for me was it's clear that Nicky Hines kind of quite enjoying working with him and being able to work with him, on such a personal level now, day to day. On the training ground, he's obviously seeing quite how good he is. Certainly a player he will know and be aware of. There's no doubt about that. But sometimes it's only really when you get to, you get that direct contact in a work sense with a player that you really get to see the things that you often don't elsewhere. Really, really interesting. Certainly, Karetsas and the Cat, both players, like you say, regardless, have massive futures ahead of them, and they definitely are very high up on the list of players, probably who this summer will be the cash registers are probably going to be pinging at both Anderlecht and Genk. You would imagine definitely wants to keep an eye on those two brilliant players, both of them. Well, that's it. That's the week in Belgian football, and that's the week in the transfer roundup. Thanks for joining me, Joris.
No, you're welcome. And as always, and let's see how our lineup will be next week as well. Yeah, we will have to see, of course. And one more fun thing to mention, maybe as well, related to the cup tie yesterday between Charleroi and. It's related to everything in the episode, actually. Like Guillaume got offered the new contract by Bayat in the interview afterwards. Guillaume, of course, scoring both goals, I guess, in the end. But mainly the second goal was a really good strike. So in ecstasy, because his contract was running out by the end of this season. I believe Charleroi had an option, but let's forget about that. It takes away a bit away of this story. But he extended his contract for until 2028, so even a year longer still. And let's see. That's one of the interesting players that otherwise maybe would have been picked up relatively. At a relative bargaining price in the winter, or even for free, or bargaining price in the summer again as well, which now will not be the case. Maybe it still gets picked up, but it won't be for a lower fee than anyone hoped for. But congratulations on that, I guess, as well. That was just a funny moment as well related to that match. That was a very eventful tie for sure.
It definitely was. I saw lots of the eyes raised emoji. I saw lots of that on social media around that result this week as well, both from people watching the game and those not watching it as well, which gives you a sense of kind of how surprising that result actually was in the end. If you like what we're doing here at the BFP, please do consider leaving us a little review on your podcast platform of choice. It always helps new people find us, and we love getting your reviews as well. Equally, if you'd like to hunt down either myself, Joris, or Ben, because some people do, and ask us lots of questions. I've been getting questions, people kind of getting in touch with me on social media this week, mainly Rangers fans asking about their new arrivals. More on that later, of course, as I was saying earlier. And of course, you can reach our Ben, who will be back with us soon. And will be able to tell us all more about his adventures at AFCON, of course. Those of you who've been following him on social media will know that he has been at AFCON, taking in some of the action. Lots of Pro League connections, both current and past, at the games he was at as well. Belgium's enduring relationship with African football shows no signs of waning at all. goal, which is really exciting. As obviously Ben continues to work on his second book as well. More on that later. Equally, you can, if you choose, we'd be very grateful if you wanted to do that, to leave a little donation at our Buy Me a Coffee account. That goes a small way to helping us meet some of our production costs here at the BFP. But whatever you're up to over the next few days, take care of yourself, everybody, and we'll be back with you again next week with all of the latest across Belgium on another episode of the Belgian Football Podcast.